Just kidding. Hello, Internet! Rosie here.
And Trish.
Thank you so much for joining us for our very first episode of Let's Talk EA. Super excited, and so we should jump right into it with probably the most obvious question to start this series is, what is EA?
EA is basically minimal regret planning. Look before you leap. So basically, you want to find out what the positive and negative impacts of a development, a project will be before you do it.
What kind of projects would trigger an environmental assessment?
That changes based on where you live, but it could be anything from a park bench to a mine. It could involve a policy or a program of government, and so many things can be subject to an environmental assessment.
You mentioned that it is the government that is conducting the environmental assessment.
First, a little technicality. An environmental assessment, the studies are usually funded by industry and done by consultants in Canada. The government is the one who evaluates those studies and then makes a decision as to whether or not the project should proceed and under what terms and conditions it can be developed. Now, to answer your question, all provinces and territories in Canada have their own environmental assessment process, and some municipalities, some First Nations communities have their own environmental assessments as well. And so environmental assessment is done by different levels of government across Canada.
Why would it be important for both the provincial and federal government to take the environmental assessment process into account?
Strong federal legislation is really important when your own province's legislation is very, very weak or has a lot of hedging words, like the minister may do an environmental assessment. You want strong federal legislation if your environmental assessment process is pretty old. The one in Manitoba was written in the late 90s and needs some updating, and we've been trying to develop better environmental assessment legislation in Manitoba really actively for the last 5 years, but we're still waiting. So we need a strong federal presence, again, to sort of level the playing field.
Why is the process of environmental assessment important?
I know that when I first start talking environmental assessment to my students, they get a glazed look over their face and think, oh, this is so boring. And it is. I mean, we're talking about laws. But it's really important if you care about climate change, if you care about jobs, if you care about the water. All of these things should be taken into account in an environmental assessment. And environmental assessment is a good way to ensure that government is taking things that are important to you into account as it takes a decision about a project.
So now that we have a better idea of what environmental assessment is, I think we should throw an action out. What do you guys think? Yeah, I think they're cheering for us.
Excellent.
There's an event next week?
Yes, November 9th, 2016, at the University of Winnipeg, 6:30. There's a town hall for environmental law where we're going to have some speakers and have questions and answers and interaction from the audience. It's free. All are welcome to attend.
So for those of you who are in Winnipeg or nearby, looking forward to seeing you on November 9th. And for the rest of you, until next time. Let's talk again. Let's talk again.